People think that discipline is adding more stuff that makes things harder. Discipline to me is identifying what really matters in your life and ignoring everything else.
Greg Ballantyne is known as the world's most disciplined man and the author of The Dark Side of Discipline and The Perfect Day Formula.
You've talked about your experience with anxiety, your worst day of your life. What have you learned from that?
I kept everything inside. I still had some bad behaviors that made me look like a hypocrite. Personal trainer, online fitness celebrity, 5 or 6 days a week, and then binge drink on the weekend. And that incongruency will eat you up inside. I was making the most money I had ever made in my life. I was in the best shape of my life. Anxiety doesn't care about your abs. You can't have anxiety if you were being generous. Anxiety is something where you're inwardly focused, keeping everything in your head, and when you suppress things and push them down, they explode back up. I once was one who fell into the same trap. Fixing the real problem is the hardest thing to do, but that is where the greatness lies. Is this necessary or sufficient for success? In order to be successful, do you have to do this thing?
Craig, really excited to be here with you. Been following you for some time, so I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome. Great to have you here.
This is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm just going to intro you for people who may not know you. You're known as the world's most disciplined man, and you're the author of The Dark Side of Discipline and The Perfect Day Formula. And you're also the creator of Turbulence Training Fitness System, and you have a website that you own, which is called earlytorise.com. So really excited to be talking with you. So for those of you people who don't know you as such, that might mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. Tell me a little about your experience and who you are as a person, and just kind of give me a little bit of yourself as a short intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Canada and I wanted to be in the fitness industry. So I started there, but I wasn't meant to be a personal trainer because I have a bit of introverted tendencies and I like reading and writing. And I got lucky that the internet showed up when I was around 18 and I was able to start putting my content out, and I started selling stuff almost 25 years ago. And I built up this really great online fitness business. But then I got bored of it. And so after selling lots and lots of programs and helping a lot of people, I transitioned into writing about productivity, I guess you would say. And that's where the whole shtick about the world's most disciplined man came, because people said, wow, you're really productive, therefore you must be disciplined. And I'm not really disciplined by nature. It's systems that I've built that make the right actions almost automatic and force me to do the work. And then that gives me the freedom that I want in life. Because there was a point in my life when I worked too much and I had anxiety attacks and I didn't have the freedom that I wanted. I knew things had to change. And so after shutting down the fitness business and transitioning into the productivity coaching and business coaching, I wrote The Perfect Day Formula, then Unstoppable, which is how to overcome anxiety, then The Perfect Week Formula, which is probably the book that most people should have started with before this new book that came out. And then, we were just heavy into coaching and events over the last couple of years. And I made time last year to write a new book because I saw kind of a disturbing trend in the personal development world, in the business coaching world. And I had to speak up and say something about it. And most of my successes in life, probably people listening will, and yourself will probably agree that when you have an opinion that's against the crowd, and you really believe in it and you stand up for it and you speak about it, a lot of people, you'll catch people's attention. The best ads, the best messages really are against the grain. And my latest book is really against the grain. And I think it's going to be a big hit.
Awesome. Love it. I think you've really summed up what I've noticed as well. And I've been kind of victim of the discipline trap. I've done the cold. I know you talk a lot about the cold plunges and how that's not going to get you where you want to get to. And you've talked a lot about these, getting up really early, 5 a.m. and doing a 2.5 hour morning routine. So, I've fallen into that trap. So what do you think that most people, or most entrepreneurs or business owners or young entrepreneurs get really wrong when they start thinking about discipline and focus and productivity?
Yeah. And I'd say, to simplify it, it's people think that discipline is adding more stuff that makes things harder. And sure, if you define discipline by I'm really busy and I do a lot of things, okay, then you are successful at being disciplined. But that's not how I look at discipline. Discipline to me is identifying what really matters in your life and building a path to achieving that and ignoring everything else. That's discipline, saying no. So the common trap, especially that young, ambitious people fall into, and I love speaking to young, ambitious people because I once was one who fell into the same trap. But in entrepreneurs in general, we're ambitious and we want to do everything. We want to achieve everything. We're like wild horses, and wild horses who just run around until they're exhausted. That's not the right way of doing things. Instead, saying no is the ultimate discipline. Saying no to all these distractions. There's so many of them these days. You open up your Instagram and it's like, oh, I see a new thing. I want to jump in. And this is actually called something, the name of it is mimetic desire. So we see other people that, we look up to, and they value something. And therefore, even though we don't, in our core values, value it, we start to think, oh, I should value it because so-and-so values it. For example, I have no watch on my wrist because I don't understand the obsession with watches. I have friends who spend probably a couple $100,000 a year on watches, and I don't get it. If I was to think I need to go and get a watch, I actually had a Rolex once. I won it in an affiliate contest. I gave it to my brother-in-law. It's engraved to me, but he's the only one who wears it because I got a phone that tells me the time. And that's how I look at it. But the mimetic desire is, oh, that person has a sports car. I got to go buy a sports car. That person has a bigger house. I got to go buy a bigger house. Even though you're like, I'm actually totally fine in the world that I exist in. And it's the same with the discipline challenges. I don't cold plunge and my life is good, but I see this cold plunging thing. I should go try it. And yeah, it feels kind of good. I mean, I like a cold plunge, but I don't do it because I think that I have to do it because others do it. I would only do it if I knew that it served me. And so a lot of people are serving the thing and the thing is not serving them. And that's what I want you to think about as you listen to this podcast. What are the things in my life that are imprisoning me? And what are the things in life that are serving me? There's a big difference between the two, even though the things that are imprisoning you can be looked at as good things. Working out is good, but is working out twice a day or, doing a triathlon when you have a rocky marriage, well, that good thing is now becoming interference to the great thing. And I don't want that to happen to people.
You've talked about, I've heard some of your content. You talk about giving a level 10 attention to a level 1 problem. Yeah. And this is kind of this concept that you're talking about, right? This is what you're trying to get across.
Exactly. So years ago, I used to speak at an event called Fitness Business Summit. And Fitness Business Summit had about 700 personal trainers every year that would come. And I would sit there and I would look out in the audience and I'd say, oh, there's Jack and Judy and James, same seats every year. But last year they came to the event and they were 8% body fat, were in great shape. But they had $8 in their bank account because they didn't know any sales and marketing. So they came to the event and we taught them sales and marketing all weekend. But during the breaks, they would go and talk to the other personal trainers about workout and nutrition because that's what they like. And then they would go home and they would ignore all the information about sales and marketing and they would focus on workouts and nutrition. And they would come back the next year and I'd see, oh, there's James, Judy, and John or whoever I said. And I'd look at them and they go, wow, they're down to 7% body fat this year, but they have $7 in their bank account. And so they were putting a level 10 effort into a level 1 problem, their fitness. Like going from 8% body fat to 7% body fat changes nothing in their life, but it's what they know. They're comfortable. They get dopamine hits from the workouts and, the positive comments to them from clients and stuff. Doesn't change their business or anyway, but it just feels good. On the flip side, their level 10 problem was learning sales and marketing to grow their business. And they put a level 1 effort into it. And therefore they got the results that they got, which was they're still broke. That's an extreme example. It's a real life example, but it's an extreme example. And we see that all the time with people who have, maybe they're married 15 years, right? They're married 15 years. There's not a lot of spark in the marriage. Their kids are 12 years old and both the parents are just Ubering their kids around to various sporting events. And that's the relationship. And they don't want it to be like that. So that's the level 10 problem. But the thing is, a level 10 problem takes a long time and a lot of effort to see change. You're not going to say, hey, let's go on one date and all of a sudden the spark is back in your marriage. That's not how it works. You really have to work at it. And so you look at it and you go, that problem is just, oh man, it's going to be so hard. and there's too much inertia to even starting it. So instead, the person looks around and they go, oh, I see these people doing the reading a book a week club. I'm going to read a book a week, because it's easy to start a book and you get a dopamine hit from them. And you join some online group and they're like, hey, welcome to the group. And now you made a new friend. And it's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And whether it's starting a new funnel or starting a new podcast or starting a YouTube channel, when you have this existing business that is stuck, starting the new is always the easiest thing to do. But fixing the real problem is the hardest thing to do. But that is where the greatness lies.
And that's where the discipline exists, right? It's the discipline exists to cut the door, what you said, to filter out all the noise, go, what are my problems? Like, I mean, sometimes I reflect as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, what are my problems? Like, what are my level 10 problems? I'm thinking, okay, if there's this issue and this issue here, am I actually facing the problem itself? And I think if we tap in back to discipline, like that, the discipline just to accept that you have this level 10 problems, right? Like
it's the discipline to do the thinking. Most people will not do the self-reflection and introspection they need. And so they know on a surface level that, maybe there's a team member that has to go. Maybe there's a client that just is absolutely horrible. They're disrespectful to your team or whatever, and you need to have that conversation. Or maybe you have a business partner and things are going sideways here. And that problem exists superficially, but you haven't identified it as a level 10 problem. So that's the first thing you have to do, is figure out what the actual problem is. The second thing is, most people just avoid difficult discussions. They'll passive aggressiveness, or they'll sweep it under the rug, they'll hide from it, and it only gets worse. And eventually, the team member either quits or they do something so bad you have to fire them. And you're better off, but you waited 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, when you should have just taken and said, level 10 problem, I'm going to come and deal with you with a level 10 effort. Most people won't do it because they won't do the thinking and they won't hit it head on, and they'll find something else to do for distraction.
And that's I guess is another perverse way of,
right. The perverse form of procrastination is a phrase I use, because most people don't have that, the people that are listening to this, they're ambitious, they're high performers, they want a lot of stuff in life. So it's not like when they have a problem, they go and fill it with drinking, drugs, alcohol. Sometimes there is, but in most cases, what I'm talking about here is they're filling it with other things that can be viewed as good, but they're not good if you are ignoring something that is much more important. That's the big lesson here.
Right.
And that's how it becomes a perverse form of procrastination, because, drugs and alcohol and TV and video games, those are procrastination. Those are obvious. But when you're doing something that everyone thinks is good, how can that be procrastination? Well, it's procrastination because it gets in the way of great.
Yeah. And so how do you number one, identify that, and how do you kick it? How do you actually go, well, hey, you've got loads of experience with your clients and working, and you've so much business experience, and you have your lovely title, which really shows that, you understand this problem. How do you help people actually get into that? And actually avoid it? Is it a mindset, or is it just like, hey, face it? Like, is it just like a tough conversation you have to have with yourself?
It is a tough conversation. And the reason why it's tough is because it requires deep thinking. So it requires you getting pieces of paper, getting away from electronics, getting a notepad, not allowing audiobooks and podcasts to fill your brain and entertain you and distract you, but just to think. And most people don't do the hard thinking, but you need to think about a few things. You need to think about your big why. What are you doing all of this for in the first place? Because if you simply say, I'm doing this because I want to provide a great life for my family. Maybe you're engaged, maybe you're married with kids, but family is in your future. Or, maybe it's just you want to live a great life. You want to have wealth that allows you to live this great life without stress. That's what you're doing this for. Okay, that's your big why. Now I want to have a vision for your life. Tell me exactly what you're going to achieve in the next 3 years, where you're going to live, what your family's going to look like, what you do, what you don't do, what your work week looks like, how much money you have. Tell me exactly. Great. That's our North Star, straight line to success, our finish line for our personal race in life. And we can ignore everybody else's race. We're going to run our own race. And then the third thing is, what's your specific definition of success for what you want to improve right now? So a lot of people come to me and say, I want to get more disciplined. Well, if I have 100 people tell me they want to get more disciplined, it's going to mean 100 different things. One person needs more discipline with their phone, so they don't have it when they're around their kids. Another person might need discipline around a vice, pornography, alcohol, drugs, Netflix, whatever. Another person might need discipline around their health. I need to know what's your specific definition of success. What specific outcome must you get from this change? And when I know those things, then we go and build the plan using the effortless discipline systems, which are the second part of the book, to achieve this as automatically as possible. And the effortless discipline systems allow you to break any bad habit and replace it with a good habit and get more done and more results in less time. And they go like this. It's really just 3 words you have to remember: elimination, preparation, and connection. Elimination is make the bad habit as hard as possible. Put as much friction in between you and the bad habit. So alcohol, get all the alcohol out of your house. Stop hanging around people in alcoholic environments and stop hanging around toxic people that only lead you to drinking. You don't have to, I don't like these guys on the internet who say you have to, go dark and cut all your friends. And that's just ridiculous. Humans were meant to be social individuals. But if you want to stop drinking, then you have good friends who like to drink. You need to spend time with those good friends in non-alcoholic environments. And that's possible. That's what I did.
Remove the barrier to entry, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Put as much friction in the way of doing the bad thing. On the flip side, we use preparation to making the good thing as easy as possible to do. So somebody listening to this, like, man, we're into the year and I've already lost my New Year's resolution of going to the gym. It's because there was probably too much friction in the way of you doing the good habit. So what you want to do is put your workout clothes beside the bed, maybe even sleep in them if they're clean, right? You pair of shorts and t-shirt, get up, put your socks on, your shoes on, your workout is printed out, or you got the app right beside it, or you're going to a class or whatever it is. First thing, no friction, you just get up and go. And now you've started building a routine. And then the third thing is really the secret ingredient, which is connection. And this is where you have social support, like a community. This is where you have accountability to a mentor that you deeply do not want to disappoint, or accountability publicly, where you declare something in your Facebook group or to your email list. I've done this many times. Even with writing the book, I said, I'm going to have the book written by this time. I'm going to launch the book, physical copies in hands for people by this time. And when you say that kind of stuff, if you're a person of integrity, you're not going to miss. You're going to move mountains in order to make it happen. So that third component is often missing, because if you only keep your goals to yourself, like if you say, this is the year I'm going to lose 10 pounds, and you tell nobody, you're the easiest person to disappoint. But if you tell somebody that you deeply respect and you do not want to disappoint them, and you do not want to tell them something and they go act in a different way and have them think, oh, you're a hypocrite, then, when the going gets tough, that's when you'll push through and achieve your goals. So that's it. Figure out what you want. Figure out where your finish line is in life. Run your own race, even if everybody else is running in the opposite direction.
You talk about that a lot. You talk about getting away from that shiny object syndrome and really defining your own version of success, your own version. It sounds cliche, but your own North Star. Like, why the hell are you waking up and doing all this stuff anyway, right? Like, why is this even important to you?
Exactly. And you just have to run everything through this filter. It's very easy. And I actually learned this in a class in university. Ask the question, is this necessary or sufficient for success? Is this necessary or sufficient? And what that means is, in order to be successful, do you have to do this thing? Like like if you look at the most successful people in the world, do they all cold plunge? No. Do they all work out twice a day? No. You should look at some of the billionaires, right? Before Bezos got on the crank, when he was skinny Bezos, he's a billionaire before he found testosterone. And so cold plunging is not necessary to be successful. Then you go, is it sufficient? If I cold plunge, is it guaranteed that I will be successful? And the answer is no, because I know a lot of broke people, unhappy people that cold plunge. So simply by doing cold plunge is not sufficient for you to achieve success. So cold plunging is neither necessary nor sufficient for success. What is? Focus and doing the work. That's it. Everything else is entertainment.
Yeah. I've had experience with doing some crazy challenges myself, to challenge myself, but the purpose was mental toughness. And I want to kind of, some people in the audience, some people listening, I think at the beginning of anything that you're starting, there's this low level of self Like you talk about discipline, you need to build a framework within inside yourself to say, well, I can actually trust myself to go and do that thing. Right. So I had this in the past where personally I did this challenge, like 75 hard. It's crazy. I've done it a couple of times. I actually really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. But what I noticed within myself was that through actually doing the difficult things, I learned that I could trust more of myself. And by learning more, I could trust more of myself. It allowed me like a springboard to go, well, no, actually my word is my bond. You said something about being a person of integrity.
Yeah.
How do you say for someone who maybe a little bit younger and hasn't got that foundation yet? How do they actually go and go, well, I want to set out to build X, Y, and Z. How do I actually know that I'm going to actually go and achieve that thing by actually trusting myself to go and do that?
So there are a lot of ways to do it. And, so you look at that and you run it through the necessary but sufficient. Do you have to do that specific challenge in order to learn how to trust yourself? And the answer is no, because there's, very, very successful people in the world who have never done that, who never would do it. And they are a person of integrity. And so is that the fastest way to do it? Is that the best way to do it? And what happens if you fail at that? Then if you fail at that, and many people do fail at that, they're now left in a position where they're in a worse spot.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword of doing that. So the answer is, and one other thing I should say is that it's really not transferable, because Tiger Woods is a great example. Tiger Woods was named the most disciplined golfer in the world. So Tiger Woods, he trusted himself to get up and go to the range every single day, 12 hours a day. He trusted himself in that area of life. But look what he did in his other area of life. He completely was the world's most undisciplined man. So the world's most disciplined golfer could also be one of the most undisciplined people in the world. So discipline is actually a very specific, very action-specific thing, because no one's perfect. So there's all areas in life where we're actually not disciplined. So if you want to change your mindset about, like, I believe in my word and my integrity, what really matters is, where do you want to believe your word and integrity? Listen, I know a lot of people who post this, how you do anything is how you do everything. And
Tony Robbins, I think, said that.
A lot of people say this, and I know them personally, and I know that they're not perfect. And I know that they've actually got some big flaws in areas. Some of them are like always late. Well, you're posting, you're like, how I do anything is how I do everything. And it sounds good, but it's just some generic quote. And it's not true, because you're always late to social functions or, to pick me up at the airport. But I know you're not late in certain other things, but it's just not true. So yes, you can never be late in your business, but you're actually late all the time when it comes to me. So how you do anything is not actually how you do everything. It just sounds good. Yeah. So the bottom line, back to your original question, is you have to identify where you need your confidence the most.
Yeah.
And it's more important for you to build specific systems to work on that, rather than trying to build a general level of discipline, because the general level of discipline is not as strong as the specific level of systems that one builds.
That's your fallback option, right? So whether you don't have trust in yourself, trust in whatever it is, you've got these systems. You've got these as your fallback option. Say, well, hey, I know what I need to do. I know what I'm focusing on. This is where I'm going.
Yeah. And the reason why a lot of the challenges and stuff work are because, you raise your hand, you get in a community of positive, like-minded people who, kind of, and you said, I'm going to do this, and you do it because of the integrity. But that's the value. It's not the actual things that are done, because those things that are done don't transfer to other areas of life. But the system of connection can be used for every point of confidence. So, everybody's welcome to go and do their thing that they believe will help them, but do so with a critical eye that, is there a better way of doing this? That's the bottom line.
I like that. I love that. Let's shift a little bit gears. One last kind of major question I want to get into.
Yeah.
You wrote a long time ago, action beats anxiety, motion beats meditation, work beats worry.
Yeah. That was the Unstoppable book.
Yeah. You've talked about your experience with anxiety, your worst day of your life. What have you learned from that? And for people who maybe struggle with anxiety, burnout, they're going through this motion, they don't know what to do next. What do you say to those people, entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are wanting to break through? Well,
yeah, it's a great question. So my personal experience was, I was making the most money I had ever made in my life when I was around 30 years old. I was in the best shape of my life. So, anxiety doesn't care about your abs. And I kept everything inside. And I still had some bad behaviors that made me look like a hypocrite, as a binge drinker on the weekend, personal trainer, an online fitness celebrity 5 or 6 days a week, and then binge drink on the weekend. And that incongruency will eat you up inside. And then there was the physical exhaustion from, some of the drinking binges that I had that all contributed into this response where I felt like I was having a heart attack that, is a manifestation of an anxiety attack. And I went to the emergency room twice. So that was the lowest low that you mentioned. What I had to figure out was that I guess that was a lot of selfish behavior that I had. And what I needed to do was flip it so that I was no longer exuding selfish behavior. That, my business wasn't all about just making money for me. My business was about helping other people. Because I don't believe you can have anxiety when you're being generous. You can't have anxiety if you are being generous. You can't have anxiety. Anxiety is something where you're inwardly focused. You're inwardly focused and keeping everything in your head. You're suppressing things. And when you suppress things and push them down, they explode back up. And you're really doing things all for yourself. But if you flip it and now you are sharing your feelings, now you're journaling, now you're having an outlet for your stress, that's a healthy outlet for your stress, and you are focused on helping other people, then you will not have anxiety. And anxiety is really like this first world problem that's brought upon ourselves. I laugh at it now. You could load me up on 3 Monsters and a Red Bull and, put all the, tell me my business was going bankrupt and I wouldn't have an anxiety attack because it just doesn't bother me anymore. And then I have these tools, whether it's breathing or gratitude journaling or whatever, that wouldn't faze me. And so I laugh at it now. So anybody going through it who, you don't laugh at it when you're going through it because you think you're in this prison and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I getting out of it? But I think that honestly, it's all brought upon ourselves. And social media doesn't help either because we're wanting other stuff. We're having that mimetic desire for things that don't matter. And so you have to figure out what really matters to you. And then you have to go out and then what you need to realize is that you already have everything. You already have everything and you need to go out and help people and stop being a business owner and start being an agent of change. And all of a sudden, the filter in which you look at everything in life completely changes. That I'm not a business owner who's building a business to make myself rich and then sell it. I'm an agent of change who's built a business that is a vehicle to lifestyle and freedom for myself, but it also gives me the opportunity to make decisions that are better for everybody else and to go and help other people. And now, if you do that and you give generously of your time and energy and your income and your information and your knowledge, you'll never deal with anxiety. You'll have completely kicked it to the curb, and you'll go, I can't believe I was ever like that.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. And where can people find about the book, The Dark Side of Discipline, and where can people find about Craig Ballantyne?
Yeah, absolutely. So darksideofdiscipline.com is where you can sign up for the book. And right now, depends on when this goes out, it might still be in waitlist mode. The book will be out in April. And then it'll also be on Amazon, hard copy, paperback, ebook, audiobook. All of those are done. They're just, going through the final motions to get uploaded. And it'll be everywhere because I'm going to be everywhere promoting it. And then you can also, if you have questions, follow-up questions, you want to tell me I'm wrong, by all means, go to Instagram at @RealCraigBallantyne. And I look forward to hearing from everybody. And I check all my DMs.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Pleasure. And we'll definitely we'll have to have another chat when the book comes out and to open everything up and crack into it more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.